Most voice messages are forgotten within seconds, but some are impossible to ignore. Story 1. The first notification chimed at 3:14 a.m. It was a rhythmic, wet tapping sound, like fingers drumming against a raw steak. I assumed it was a pocket dial, a glitch in the digital ether, and rolled back over. By 4 a.m., there were 6 more. I sat up, the blue light of my iPhone illuminating the cold, claustrophobic walls of my studio apartment. My heart thudded against my ribs as I tapped the voicemail icon. The speaker crackled with static, then settled into a low, hummed melody. It was a lullaby, the one my mother used to sing. But the pitch was wrong, distorted as if the singer were underwater. "Is this you, Sarah?" I whispered to the empty room. Nothing but the hum of the refrigerator. I deleted them, my thumb trembling. It didn't stop. The messages began to arrive in rapid succession, a digital siege. I blocked the number, but the phone rang again. No caller ID. I answered this time, my breath hitched in my throat. "Who is this? How did you get this number?" The voice on the other end was a perfect, chilling mimicry of my own. "I'm in the hallway, Sarah," my own voice said, flat and devoid of inflection. "The lock isn't as secure as you think." I didn't think. I moved. I lunged for the bedroom door, slamming the deadbolt home. My hands were slick with sweat. I stood in the dark, listening. The voicemail icon pinged again. New message. I didn't want to hear it, but the compulsion was a physical weight. I tapped play. The recording was only 3 seconds long. It was the sound of a key sliding into a lock, the distinct metal-on-metal grind of my own front door opening. Then, the rhythmic tapping started again, followed by the sound of someone breathing heavily, right next to the microphone. It wasn't coming from the phone. The sound was coming from the other side of my bedroom door. I retreated until my back hit the closet, my phone slipping from my numb fingers. The screen lit up one last time with a notification. Voicemail from you. I stared at the wood of the door. A slow, rhythmic tapping began against the panel. Tap, tap, tap. It was the same cadence as the recording. A floorboard creaked in the hallway. I realized then that the messages weren't threats. They were a countdown. The caller hadn't just been recording me. They had been narrating my final moments, editing my life into a series of digital files I was forced to curate. The handle of the bedroom door began to turn, slowly, smoothly. I gripped my phone like a weapon, but it was just a dead piece of glass. I looked at the screen one last time. A final voicemail was waiting. I knew, with a paralyzing, icy clarity, that if I played it, I would hear myself screaming. Story 2. The first voicemail came at 2:17 a.m. I wouldn't have heard it if my phone hadn't been rattling against the nightstand, vibrating with a frantic intensity that felt more like a physical assault than a notification. There was no caller ID, just a string of nonsensical symbols. I hit play, expecting a telemarketer or a pocket dial. Instead, I heard the sound of my own bedroom. The audio was crisp, capturing the rhythmic, shallow whistle of my own breathing. I froze, the covers pulled to my chin, staring into the dark corner where the shadow of my dresser clawed at the wall. Then, the recording shifted. I heard the unmistakable, wet click of my bedroom door handle turning, followed by the soft, agonizing drag of someone sliding onto the carpet. The person on the recording, if it was a person, was shivering. A low, guttural vibration escaped their throat. Not a sob, but a sound like dry leaves skittering over pavement. Then, a whisper curled through my speaker, so close it felt like a needle pressed against my eardrum. "I can see you blinking." I dropped the phone. It clattered to the floor, the screen illuminating the dark room like a dying heartbeat. I didn't breathe. I barely existed. My eyes darted to the door. It was firmly shut, the latch still engaged. Silence reclaimed the room, thick and suffocating. I waited for an hour, my fingers white-knuckled around the edges of my pillow, until the sun began to bleed a sickly gray through the blinds. Just as I convinced myself it was a cruel, high-tech prank, a sick digital haunt meant to shatter my nerves, the phone chirped again. New voicemail. My hand trembled as I reached down. I brought the speaker to my ear, my pulse thrumming in my temple like a war drum. I pressed play. There was no room noise this time, just a recording of my own voice, but it was wrong. It was my voice, but the cadence was shattered, spliced together from years of phone calls and casual conversations to form a sequence of sentences I had never spoken. Don't look under the bed. The hair on my arms stood rigid. My skin turned to ice. I didn't move, but the air in the room suddenly felt displaced, as if something had just slipped into the space behind me. Then the phone buzzed in my hand. Not a new message, a live call. I stared at the screen, paralyzed. The call was coming from my own number. I didn't answer. I didn't scream. I just stared at the sliver of space beneath the bed frame, where a pale, elongated finger, far too long to be human, was slowly, rhythmically tapping against the hardwood floor. Tap, tap, tap. The phone rang again, and this time I could hear the sound coming from underneath me.